Good morning, students. This is a quick video that demonstrates how to evaluate, add, and subtract algebraic expressions. Now, although we are done with this module or this term, quite frankly, the test results from the previous summative weren't that good, particularly on these topics. So, this short video is intended to clarify the expected way of evaluating, adding, and subtracting algebraic expressions. Okay? So, dito sa video na to, we'll be showing 6 items in detail uh, on how we or teachers expect you to be able to do it on paper by yourself. Okay? So, at every point when I say that you need to pause this video and do it on your own, we trust that you will follow that instruction and actually do it uh, before you hit play again and see what the solution should look like. Okay? That said, obviously, have your notebooks and your pens ready. Huwag na mag-snacks during this video, but do watch and re-watch this video. Particularly in preparation for a very quick yet very important classroom practice task. Kumbaga, no? Parallel to this uh, set of exercise items during your next math session. Again, panoorin, aralin, intindihin, at practicein ang laman ng video na ito in preparation for a task that your teacher will give you during the next synchronous math session. Right? So again, it's on evaluating, adding, and subtracting algebraic expressions. Again, you should have your pen and paper ready, notebook preferably, so that you can always go back to your solutions. Okay? Kung wala kang hawak na notebook ngayon at pencil or ball pen, i-pause mo na muna ang video, go get your writing materials, and then come back. Okay? Let's begin. First item, we need to evaluate the expression negative 2x squared minus 3x minus 11 given that the value of x is 2. Once again, tulad ng instruction ko kanina, pause mo na ang video na ito and try to do this on your own, then hit play when you're done. Right, dapat nung pinlay mo na, nagawa mo na, meron ka na dapat solution, meron ka dapat final answer. Remember, boys, kapag nag evaluate tayo ng expression, the idea is you're given an expression like this trinomial. I hope your classes have already been introduced to that term, trinomial. No, it's a polynomial that has 3 terms. Now, in this case, our trinomial is being evaluated given that the value of x is 2. Tandaan, pag nag-evaluate tayo, we are given a value for our variable which we should plug in lieu of our variable. In other words, we substitute a given value for our variable. And then, it doesn't stop there because I've seen papers that after plugging in a value, wala lang, parang tumigil na, binox na yung complicated looking expression, ano? But that's not what's supposed to happen when you evaluate. Pag sinabi evaluate, uh, from the root word, value, no? Well, dugtong may irito. Value. Hinahanap mo yung value ng mismong expression. Kasi remember, variables are basically placeholders for numbers. They are numbers themselves. No? They're placeholders. So that the expression itself, in this case, a trinomial, will have a particular value given the specific value of x in this situation, which is 2. So again, the idea is we plug it in instead of the variable x. And again, doesn't stop there. Once you plug in a value, once you substitute a value for your variable, you have to simplify the resulting expression. Hindi pwedeng hindi. Kailangan isi-simplify mo siya. No? And in fact, one more thing that I've seen some students do, when they substitute a value for a given variable, literally, pinapalitan lang nila yung variable. No? For example, let's focus on the first term of this expression, negative 2x squared. Again, they know, sige fine sir, I understand, I need to plug in 2 for x. But I've seen some, and don't laugh, I've seen some do this. The first term becomes, again, this is negative 2x squared, ano? So, instead of x, Kasi sabi ni teacher, palitan ko raw yung x ng 2 eh. Literally, what they do is, put 2 instead of x. And they end up with something like, oops, sorry about that. And they end up with something like this, which does look like, well, to me, negative 22 squared. No, again, don't laugh. I've seen this happen. And this is not how you should do it. Remember, your teachers, I'm sure they said that whenever we plug in values, and this is very important, whenever we plug in values, the values that are substitutes for the variable should be written within grouping symbols first. Malinaw 'yon, 'di ba? Para hindi tayo nagkakamali doon sa operations na dapat talaga nating gawin. In other words, this expression here, minus 2x squared minus 3x minus 11, if I plug in the value 2, should look like this. The proper way, should look like this. There's still negative 2 in front. Now, instead of x, I will plug in 2. But when I plug in 2 or when I substitute 2, ikukulong ko muna siya sa grouping symbol. Okay? Para yung implied operations from the original expression are maintained. Yeah? So you have something like that. And of course, to continue, I have minus 3 times 2 minus 11. See, I end up with something like this. And notice, generally speaking, when you evaluate expressions like what we're doing now, after you plug in your value, it seems like the task sort of goes back to PEMDAS, which means PEMDAS is one thing that we cannot forget. Remember, PEMDAS is a non-negotiable mathematical principle. Hindi yan namimili kung kailan mo lang pwedeng gamitin. It's a non-negotiable principle. You always have to follow PEMDAS, no? And hopefully, at this point, master na natin sana ang PEMDAS. Okay? So I simplify. Remember, it's not gonna turn negative 4. No? Not yet, at least. Kasi ang unang kailangan gawin natin dito, remember, this is between minus 2 and 2. The operation seems to be multiplication. However, the negative 2 here actually is being multiplied to the entire square of 2. Yeah? And by virtue of PEMDAS, I need to square 2 first. Ito muna. No? So what I do is, I still have my minus 2 in front times the square of 2, which is 4. No? And then I can already execute the multiplication here. That's a negative 3 times 2. That's a minus 6 minus 11. Right? Now you continue with the solutions. So a minus 2 times 4. That's a minus 8 minus 6 minus 11. Again, it is hoped that at this point, when it boils down to such a question like minus 8, minus 6, minus 11, sana hindi na tayo nagkakaiba-iba ng sagot. No? Sana pare-pareho na. Kasi kung iba-iba pa rin tayo ng sagot ngayon, ibig sabihin, merong nagkakamali. At kung may nagkakamali sa ganitong klaseng questions, well, that means you most likely did not give sufficient time for practice for adding and subtracting integers. So what do? We go back to previous modules, you revisit Pepe, yeah, our math buddy. Tuturuan kanya uh, tutulungan kanya mag-practice rather, mag-add at mag-subtract ng integers. Okay? But it's supposed to be minus 14 minus 11. That's a minus 25. Okay? Dapat pareho tayo ng sagot. Hindi pwedeng hindi. It's supposed to be a minus 25. Okay? Right. On to the next item. A similar item, evaluation pa din. So we have the expression negative 3 minus x cubed all over 2 minus x. And we're supposed to evaluate that given that x is negative 2. Okay? Once again, pause mo na ang video, hit play pag may sagot na. Right. Ngayon na pinlay mo na, as expected, meron ka na dapat sagot dito. Again, sulat natin ang expression natin with the value negative 2 plugged in already. Okay? So I'll have something like minus 3 minus, and instead of x, I have the value negative 2. Again, ikukulong ko yan sa grouping symbol, negative 2, and then I will cube that. Okay? All over, what's this? 2 minus x. That's 2 minus, again, instead of x, that's a minus 2. Okay? Simple lang, di ba? Okay? And then we go minus 3. Dito ko sa gilid. Minus 3 minus, what's the cube of negative 2? That's, again, for the millionth, billionth time. This is not gonna look like, well, either 6 or negative 6. Remember, the exponent tells you how many times you're supposed to multiply the base by itself. And in this case, the base is negative 2. So I multiply negative 2 by itself 3 times. You should get negative 8. Okay? All over, what's this supposed to be? 2 minus minus 2. Oh, pwede mong tingnan yan as by applying rather the definition of subtraction. No? Rather than subtracting the number negative 2, I can instead add its opposite, no? Which takes me to 2 plus 2. And then, simplify ko na yung numerator ko, minus 3 minus minus 8 is, again, katulad nung kanina, yung aking pag-apply ng definition of subtraction, I can make that look like minus 3 plus 8 all over. Now I can combine my 2 plus 2 to give me 4. Finally, I can simplify this. It's a minus 3 plus 8. Isn't that a 5? Yeah, that's a 5 over 4. Okay? Huwag matakot sa fractions. Fractions lang yan eh. Mahirap sa atin, pag nakakita tayo ng fractions, feeling natin hindi sila numbers. Kaya takot na tayo kagad. Diba? The way you skip item number 3 in the summative. O ganun. Fractions are just numbers. There's nothing to fear about fractions. They are bound by the same rules as any other number. Yeah? Okay, so dapat 5/4 ang yun nakuha. Of course, pwedeng sagot mo ay 1 and 1/4. That'd be fine. Okay? Item 3. Ito, simplify. Simplify the expression 2 times the quantity 3x minus 1 minus 3 times the quantity minus 4 minus x minus x. Okay? Pause muna, hit play when you have an answer. Okay? Good. Tingnan natin kung tama ang sagot mo. Now remember, when expressions are written like this, we see a group. Let's focus on the first term muna. The first term, remember, is this one right here. Focus on that term. By how the symbols, the numbers, the variable, the operations, the grouping symbols are written, this implies that I am multiplying 2 by the expression 3x minus 1. And remember, when I'm doing that kind of operation, remember that I apply a very important property from Module 1. Remember, I'm supposed to multiply 2 by both of these terms by virtue of the distributive property of multiplication over addition, or DPMA. So as you can imagine, I'll do the same thing for the second term. But this is where a lot of students get it wrong. Most students only distribute, well, by way of multiplication for the second term, just the 3. Remember, what I am multiplying here is not just a 3, but rather yung buong negative 3 ang minumultiply mo sa parehong terms. Okay? At ito, again, ito maraming pagkakamali rito ng students. Remember, one of the key skills in simplifying, adding, and subtracting algebraic expressions is understanding which of the expressions are the actual terms. No? And remember, terms will always include the sign that appears right before them. So if I'm talking about the second term here, the negative 3 multiplied by the quantity negative 4 minus x, itong buong to, notice that the factor minus 4 minus x is comprised of two terms. The first term of this factor is negative 4, and the second factor is negative x. And when you understand which parts of an expression are the terms, when you apply properties such as the DPMA, you rarely ever get mistakes. Kapag kilala mo kung sino yung mga terms. Usually, dyan nagkakamali eh. Not the non-recognition of the terms. Okay? So, let's execute the DPMA here. Now, I distribute my 2 by way of multiplication. I go 2 times 3x. I go 6x. Then, I go 2 times, again, this is negative 1. That's a minus 2. Yeah? Now, I multiply my negative 3, not just the 3, my negative 3 to both terms negative 4, which gives me 12, and the second term minus x, which gives me plus 3x. Diba? And then finally, I have a minus x right at the very end. Okay? Now here, remember, sir, ano gagawin ko dyan? Remember, ang pwede lang nating i-add o i-subtract na mga expressions ay yung tinatawag natin na similar terms. Remember, expressions or terms, algebraic terms, are similar terms if they have exactly the same literal coefficient. That means same variables and same exponents of those variables. Okay? But consider this, no? Particularly for the classes that I don't teach. I'm sure some of your teachers might have done this also, but if they didn't, maybe this can help too. Okay? Pinapakita ko to sa mga students ko sa tatlong classes ko. Ano? Now that I'm supposed to combine the like terms here, and you know, fine, sige. Sir, the 6x can be combined with the 3x and the minus x. Sure, that's correct. But in our classes, this is what we do. Look, this might prove helpful to you. Kapag na-recognize mo kung sino yung similar terms, ang suggestion ko sa aking mga students, you enclose the similar terms and similar shapes para hindi ka malilito kung sino yung pwede mo i-combine. What does that mean, sir? For example, etong mga terms that carry the variable x. Let's say that I will enclose them in squares or in boxes, however you want to call it. So I boxed 6x right there. Ang similar term kay 6x ay sina 3x and minus x. At tignan kung paano ko i-box. Ibabox ko etong buong ito. At etong buong ito. Kasi sabi ko nga kanina, terms will always include the sign that appears before them. Yeah? Now, I'll get back to that in a while. Ano ang advantage nito? No? Now, there are remaining terms here. Maybe I'll encircle the similar terms. But note, ginagamit ko pink naman. At ibang shape at the same time. Pink circles. Now, what's the beauty of doing it like this? Tingnan mabuti, no? Kapag in-enclose mo sa shapes, similar shapes, yung similar terms, almost always, well, at least in particular with this example, note how there are no more numbers or terms or expressions or symbols that can be found outside of any of the shapes. Yeah? Because I was able to enclose the similar terms in similar shapes. Ang kinaganda nito ngayon, you're now only supposed to do one operation. And that is adding. Add ka na lang ng add ng add ng add as long as they are within the same shape. Because now that you have enclosed the similar terms, focus on the word, the emphasis on the word term. Now that you have identified the similar terms, by definition, remember, a term is an expression that we add. Kaya kapag na-identify mo na ang terms, add ka na lang ng add. May iba kasing students, nagtataka, sir, ano magagawin ko rito? I-add ko ba ito isusubtract? Ay, hindi na. Kinaganda nitong strategy na to, once the similar terms are within similar shapes, the only thing left for you to do is to add, and add. Look at this. Let's deal with the boxes first. This is a plus 6 or positive 6 plus positive 3. That's a positive 9 plus a negative 1. Remember, negative 1 yan. May nagtatago dyan na digit na 1. So again, that's a 6 plus 3. That's a 9 plus negative 1. That's supposed to be an 8. And then I just reattach the variable x. Diba? Hindi ka magkakamali eh. Kapag naka-enclose yun in similar shapes. And now I deal with the ones in the pink circles. That's a minus 2 plus 12. That gives me a 10. A positive 10. Tapos. Diba? Hindi ka magkakamali dyan kapag ini-enclose mo sa similar shapes yung similar terms. Kasi you're not leaving behind, which is usually the source of errors, you're not leaving behind the signs that are supposed to be part of that term. Yeah? Try nyo yan, ha? Specifically, try nyo kaya dito sa next item natin. Yeah? Same strategy. Try that. Simplify this expression right here. Okay? Once again, hit pause. Pause nyo muna ang video and then hit play when you're done. Right, dapat may sagot ka na. Now, tingnan mabuti yung expression na ito, no? This is, again, the an example of when removing grouping symbols is a necessary step in simplifying completely your expression. Kasi kapag meron kang grouping symbols like what we have here, no? I have a grouping symbol enclosing the terms negative 3xy squared plus x squared y. And the problem is, of course, sabi ko nga kanina, PEMDAS is non-negotiable. However, PEMDAS may not necessarily be the most appropriate tool every time. Like this one, no? I cannot add the two terms within the parentheses because they're not similar terms. So I'm limited in terms of using the PEMDAS, which forces me therefore to remove the grouping symbols and remove them. By removing them, I mean remove them properly because I see that outside of the groups, there might be terms similar to those inside the parentheses. Di ba? Kaya kailangan matanggal sila properly. Okay? So what do we do now? There are several ways by which you can approach this. Pwedeng number one, you see outside of the parentheses, meron ka ng mga terms na similar na. Di ba? Bawa ito, si negative 2x squared y, tsaka si negative 4x squared y. Similar na yun eh. No? So pwede mo na sila i-combine. Yun nasa labas. Ako, personally, I would rather remove all grouping symbols first para sabay-sabayan ako later on magko-combine ng similar terms. And remember, because of the placement, because of how, excuse me, the expression is written, I see that this group is being negated. Yeah? And that will force us to recall the definition of the opposite of a sum. Okay? So I should be able to rewrite my entire equation as negative 2x squared y minus 5xy squared. And then I take the opposites of the terms inside the group. Plus 3xy squared minus x squared y. Ito, hindi matadamay ito ha. Yung iba, ito rin ang error. Kasi they appear after the group. They assume that they are part of the flipping of the signs. But no, hindi yan apektado kasi wala naman sila within the group eh. They're not being negated. So they remain to be minus 4x squared y and xy squared. Yeah? Now I start enclosing the similar terms and similar shapes. Maybe the x squared y's, I box x squared y. Saan pang x squared y? Ito, x squared y. And again, each time, sinasama mo yung sign that appears before the term. Yan pa ba? X squared y. Ito, x squared y. And the rest, they appear to be xy squared terms. Xy squared, 3xy squared, minus 5xy squared. O, di ba? Ang dali. Now you just combine the like terms. And when you combine, remember, this is the beauty of this strategy. The only thing left for you to do, the only operation left for you to do is addition. So I go minus 2 or negative 2 plus negative 1. That's a negative 3 plus negative 4. That's a negative 7. Then I just reattach their little coefficient x squared y. Okay? Now for the pink circles, it's a negative 5 plus 3. That's a negative 2 plus 1. That's a negative 1. Now, some of you might be tempted to write negative 1 xy squared, although that is not mathematically incorrect, it's not conventional. Remember, if the coefficient is either 1 or negative 1, we do away with writing the digit 1. Yeah, which in this case leaves us with the final answer, negative 7x squared y minus xy squared. Okay? Dali lang, di ba? I hope this strategy works for you. Try that para makita mo kung, oh, ano, gagana na nga. Tignan natin. Okay? Next. Again, pause muna. Hit play when you're done. Okay, tignan natin. Again, this involves several properties. It involves DPMA. It involves applying the definition of the opposite of a sum. Okay? Execute na natin kaagad yung first line. And tandaan na, nakikita niyo yung paano ko mag-simplify. I go line by line. I go very carefully line by line. Okay? I start with my 4x, not really affected by anything, 4x. Then I distribute my multiplier, negative 3. 2, the first term minus y, I go plus 3y. And then a minus 3 times positive 3x, I go minus 9x. Yeah? Again, the minus 7x is not going to be affected. Minus 7x pa rin yan. But now I'm negating this group. Yeah? Which means all of the signs of all of the terms inside the group, babaliktad yan. So from being an x becomes minus x. From being a minus 2y, that becomes a plus 2y. Diba? Ang dali-dali. So now again, you may or may not want to use this strategy. Pwede naman. It works for me. No, I'm quite old already. I've been teaching for quite some time now, but I still do this. Para safe, para accurate. Okay? Yung X's, in box natin. X's. There you go. One more box here. One more box there. And the Y's, maybe let's encircle them. Y's, Y's. See? Walang naiwan. O, di ba? All I'm left to do is add. I go 4 plus negative 9. That's a negative 5. Plus negative 7. It's a negative 12. Plus negative 1. It's a negative 13. Then I reattach the x. Yeah? Super simple. Then you go plus 3 plus 2. You go plus 5y. Diba? Chicken. Sabi nga nila, chicken. O, diba? Walang kahirap-hirap. Ang daming strategies na pwede. Hopefully this one works for you. I think we have one last item here. There you go. Again, pause muna, then hit play when you have an answer. Right. Let's see. Tingnan natin kung tama. Sir, nakakatakot naman yan. Ang daming grouping symbol. That's fine. First thing you do when you encounter something like this, looks complicated, looks menacing. First thing you do is put your pen down, breathe, relax. They're just numbers. Yeah, they're not gonna harm you. They're just numbers. There are multiple grouping symbols here. And whenever you see such an expression, ang idea niyan is again, think about PEMDAS. Think of whether there are already terms you can already combine without having to take away the grouping symbols just yet. But in this case, I don't see any of such terms that I can combine readily. Which takes me to the necessity that now I need to remove my grouping symbols. Okay? And when you do that, for expressions with multiple grouping symbols, or groups within groups, tulad nito, I suggest you work your way from inside out. Okay? Magsimula sa group na nasa pinakaloob, and then labas ka unti-unti. Right? Now, tinan nyo mabuti solution ko ha, kung gaano ka-detailed. Para hindi ako nagkakamali. Step by step by step. I see brackets here, enclosing binomial here. An expression with two terms, of course. Yeah. So I start working from within this group. But sir, I cannot add minus x plus 2. Right. But I need to remove the grouping symbol, and I take note I'm negating that group. So that's where I start. Yeah. I'll go minus 2 minus x minus, tinan na, halos sinokopya ko yung buong expression. No? Matyaga. Okay? Huwag nagsiskip ng lines. Kasi pag nagsiskip kayo ng lines, that's typically where you start getting or committing your errors. Okay? So I'm at minus 3x, but now I'm supposed to negate the expression minus x plus 2. So that will be, without the group, without the parenthesis now, matatanggal ko siya. But when I do that, I will need to negate the signs of those two terms. The minus x becomes a plus x, and the plus 2 becomes a minus 2. Okay? The minus 1 right after that, remember, it's not going to get affected. Walang epekto yan doon. Okay? Now again, option 1. You may already start combining the similar terms here. You can, no problem. Ako parang ayoko. Ayoko muna. Kasi gusto ko mas i-demonstrate yung paggamit ko rito ng definition of the opposite of a sum para napapractice natin paulit-ulit. Right? So again, now, although there are terms that I can combine within the grouping symbol, I'd rather not. Okay? Bakit? Gusto ko lang ipakita ulit ang definition of the opposite of a sum just so we master it. Okay? So I can remove the brackets, but remember, look at the symbol appearing right before it. It's a minus sign, which means I'm negating that sum. This is a sum eh. Diba? Ina-add mo yan lahat technically. Sir, sabi mo, may subtraction eh. Remember, we have redefined subtraction as basically the addition of its opposite. Yeah. So I will negate the entire group. I get minus 2 minus x. Now, babaliktarin ko lahat ng mga signs ng mga to. From a minus 3x, I go plus 3x. From a plus x, I go minus x. From a minus 2, plus 2. From a minus 1, plus 1. Look, wala na akong grouping symbol. O, di ba? Ngayon, pwede na akong mag-combine ng like terms. Again, you can use the shapes strategy. I'll use that here. I will box maybe the constants. Yan. Box, 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 box. And then encircle the ones that carry the variable x. I have a minus x plus 3x minus x. Diba? Eh, hindi ka magkakamali kapag ganyan ginagawa mo. Now, I go with the constants first. Minus 2 plus 2. Oops, tanggalin opposites. Remember, anong property nag-a-apply dyan? Very good. That's the inverse property of addition. You're left with the 1. Lagay mo sa harap yung 1. Ayan, 1. Pangit naman ng 1 na yun. Buray natin. 1. There you go. Now, I go minus x. That's a negative 1. Plus 3. That's a positive 2. Positive 2. Plus negative 1 is a positive 1. Again, you might be tempted, sir, I'll put 1x. It's not technically wrong, but we don't do that conventionally. We just do away with the numerical coefficient since it's just 1. So I'm left with 1 plus x. Ngayon, kung gusto nyo naka-standard form or in the form wherein all terms with variables appear first, no? And then the constant term as the last term. Which in this case, dalawa lang naman sila. Pwede mong isulat yan na ganyan. Anyway, that's also guaranteed by what property again? Correct. The commutative property of addition. So that expression simplifies as, merely x plus 1. Dapat pareho tayo ng sagot, eh? I hope. Okay? So I guess those are the 6. I think that's the 6th one. Practice exercises. Pero hindi pa ako tapos. Tinan to. On your notebook, kung gusto mo talagang maging magaling sa topic na ito, no, gagawin mo to sa notebook, gagawin mo siya step by step, gagawin mo siya systematic, gagawin mo siya honestly. So on your notebook, you give time, you practice these items. The answers to these items will be shown in a separate post. Okay? Again, tandaan, napaka-importante ng video na ito. Ulit-ulitin mo panoorin, i-pause, rewind, speed it up, slow it down, panoorin mo ng paulit-ulit in preparation for a quick task next synchronous math session. Okay? I cannot stress this enough. Do study this material. Intindihin na mabuti. Nagtatagalog na nga ako at times. Yeah? The answers to these 12 exercise items will be provided again in a separate post. Be sure that you know what happens in each line. Make sure that you get the right answers. Okay? Kung bitin ka, merong textbook. Okay? Gamitin ang items sa textbook. Bitin pa rin, sir. Meron tayong worksheet. Dami, 50 plus items yata yun. Yeah? Answer all of those items in preparation for that task on, whenever your next math session will be. Alright? Ulit ha? We're putting trust in you that you're doing this task. Study, 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 study. Thank you.